Hello, Barbara Benson here. I am an independent knitwear designer who also makes videos here on my YouTube channel, Watch Barbara Knit. And the last Thursday of every month, we go live here for an Ask Me Anything that is knitting or fiber or really, really whatever you want to talk about. That is pretty much what we do here. I'm excited to see Tina was in here from Las Vegas, and Karen, I'm so glad you made it, and Barbara from Maryland. Hello, Alex. And hello, Celeste. It's so nice to see you. You stayed awake. Thank you for staying awake for me. Man, my hair is not hairing correctly. I don't know. It's growing out a little bit, and I'm not sure I like what's happening here. And I'm considering getting this line like extended somehow and like just taking all of this off and having the shave part extend. What do you guys think? What do y'all think? Would it look okay if I got rid of all that? The amount of white in this side piece though is a little much, but I don't like the way that's looking. It just is looking kind of it's looking kind of pitiful because it was shorter, so it was holding tighter, but I wanted it to go longer and it's just not doing the thing, in between. I'm thinking about getting those those jagged tooth headbands and putting them on and seeing how that helps as to grow it out a little bit more and get a better. You like my hair adjustment concept. Thank you, Celeste. Hello, Sunflower. Welcome. I'm so glad you joined us. Hello, my Garful, my golfer. Keep the hair. Okay, so we have one vote for shave it and one vote for keep it. Karen, I could rock it. Thank you. I'm glad you have faith. I'm glad. It's hilarious that you think I like leave my house to have places where I go to rock it. I do occasionally leave my house, but things have been a little bonkers around here. Last week was spring break, but we have never really had spring break since my son has been in high school, because spring break is when his robotics competition occurs. So we can never go anywhere. This is his fourth year. He's done. This was his last one. And they actually, one of the newer members of the robotics team, their father owns he makes trailers, that you pull boats on, custom trailers, and has a very large workshop. So they took the robot up to the workshop, and it has like a shower in it and like places for them to lay down. And he came home to pack a backpack on Friday, and I didn't see him until Wednesday morning when he came home to pack up everything to drive to Orlando with my husband to go and do the thing. So they just slept in the workshop and worked on this robot. So it's been a little chaotic. So just things are everywhere. Hello, Holly in Nova Scotia. I'm going to guess that HLLY is Holly. Hello, Mary Beth in Long Island. I was just talking to someone in Long Island the other day. It's somebody on Discord I was talking to in Long Island. I lived in Chappaqua. I lived in like the suburbs of New York. I wasn't in like a borough or anything. And it wasn't even for a full year. I did a co-op as part of my education, but I lived there this was brilliant. I moved there in January. So I moved from South Carolina to New York in January and was there the entire spring semester and then worked through the summer semester. And then I returned to South Carolina in the fall for the fall semester. But yeah, moving there. And it was the early 90s. I think it was 1994, which there was a huge weather system that moved through that dumped like 4 feet of snow on Atlanta. So the snow, it was it was amazing. It was something that I was not ready for, accustomed to, didn't know how to deal with. Like walking through hip deep snow kind of situation for someone who's from South came there from South Carolina was a little bit overwhelming, but it was an exciting experience. Oh, thank you, Holly. I've been seeing all the ads for it and everything. I just can't get into it right now. Holly is one of my compatriots from World of Warcraft. And if you have been coming to my lives for any length of time, there have been times where we have gone kind of on a tangent for World of Warcraft. But Holly, I'm actually going to be moving. And I've said this last week, and we need to talk about this last month. We need to talk about this. I am going to be moving in, what is it? Like 3 months across country to Seattle. So I cannot pay for and down and redo WoW right now because I do not have the time to spend, because I know that if I did, I would end up, spending hours and hours and hours wanting to play. And I can't. I can't right now. And that's actually something I wanted to talk to y'all about. This is going to be my last live stream in this context. I don't know if y'all pay close and I don't want to say pay close attention. I don't know if it registers on y'all. So I did not upload any other static video, non-live stream video in the month of March. I just have not had the opportunity to make one. And a lot of it is because my mind is so focused on all the things that we need to do to move, including finding some place to live and finding someone to repair our roof and finding someone to pressure wash our house and packing boxes and trying to sell stuff on Facebook and all kinds of things that I just don't have the mental space. I don't have the time, and I also don't have the mental capacity to be making quality videos right now. My plan is to continue as much as I can with the last Thursday, and come on and chat with y'all and have fun. But I'm not, until after we move, I won't be making any more like static videos. Really, I might be able to make a few like of the shorts or little hand things, because after this live, and that's why I say this is going to be the last live in this kind of context. After this live, I need to break all of this down. All of this has to go in boxes. I have to try to keep my videos nice. I have 2 large lighting sources that are, taller than me, and one of them has a big I don't know if I can do this. You can see that one, and you can see that one. And then this is my hot mess, right? And that is not going to show well. Anyone who walks back into this room, you want it to be all like calm and spa-like, and people be able to visualize like living here. And anybody who walks back into this room is like, what kind of videos are you shooting back here? Because it looks like a studio. So that I have to break all this down. I have to pack it all up. I'm probably going to just completely break down my computer. I've got dual monitors. They got to go. Everything's got to go. And I got to make this look like a normal person lives here, so normal people can imagine themselves here. So it's going to make it so I can't do videos. And so what I'm going to try to do with the live streaming is I will be doing it with my phone. And that's going to be different. It's going to cause, I don't know. I haven't really, the last time I did it with my phone was when we evacuated for Ian in Miami, and it did work. So you guys want to see, watch this. My phone's really cool. Watch this. Isn't that funny? When I open up my phone, my phone case lights up. It's very cool. Okay, I've been talking. Let's see with. Hello, Elizabeth. Hello, Shonig. I believe that's Shonig, right? Yes, I am from Perth in Western Australia. Shonig, that is so cool. Do you have quokkas where you are? That's I saw quokkas in the Australia Zoo, and they were so ridiculously cute, but my understanding is that they were really exotic for Brisbane because they're from the other coast, and quokkas are the cutest things. Thank you for joining us in Australia. Tina, Seattle is cool and hip. You're cool and hip. You'll have a blast. Thank you for saying that. Last night we went to one of our regular places we go. It's a smash burger place, and they know us and they talk to us and everything. And we mentioned that we are going to be moving to Seattle. And the woman looked at me and she goes, "I can see you guys in Seattle." I'm like, I don't know how to take that, but okay. Oh, hubby is having a crisis. Oh, good luck, Celeste. I think she's already gone. Okay, Milagro Nieves. How do I get ideas for patterns? Sunflower, I'm so glad you have been a long time viewer and you're joining us. Um, have a great live. Thank you, Celeste. Okay, so we're still going to continue lives on Thursday nights, but there will be no new videos. And the context of the lives might be interesting. They might be on my porch. Who knows what the background's going to look like? But I want to continue contacting y'all, and I want to continue this the Thursday night. I can sit here and talk to you. I can set aside time to like do it, but it's the whole planning part that it takes for me to make an actual video that I cannot currently do. Hello, Diane at Mall of America. I think I was there once. No, or maybe it was a little bit it was a big old mall. I mean, I was in Illinois, but I went up into Wisconsin. So I don't think I got all the way up to Mall of America, but that's so cool. I wish I was there. Okay, how do I get ideas for patterns? Milagro Nieves asked me that. So I hope I came somewhere close to pronouncing your name right. I hope I didn't put too much sass on it or too little sass on it. I don't see any like accent marks, so I'm not real sure. So my personal design style is very yarn driven. What I do is I have a yarn that I decide, and actually I have been trying to do stuff. I got this far. I actually rolled up the hazel knits. This is how far I got in trying to plan something. I got the yarn rolled up. I haven't gotten any. I got it right. Woohoo! Yay me! Um, I got that far. And so what I typically do. Okay, so here let's walk this through. So these are the colors I bought. I really like them. These are half skeins from Hazel Knits. I got them on my last trip to Seattle. And they're specifically half skeins of worsted, so they're 100 yards a piece. So then what I did is excuse me, Lightini. Okay. I go through my stitch dictionaries. And I start, like if I'm starting with yarn, I go through my stitch dictionaries and I see if anything in here really like grabs my attention or is something that I feel like that yarn would like. And actually, let me see if I can find what I'm kicking around for that particular combo of yarn. I knew right off the bat that I want to do slip stitch color work with it because that's what I like to do. I mean, I want to do color work, but I don't do stranded. I don't do intarsia. Slip stitch is my thing. Hello, Heidi. I'm so glad you're here. Shona. Okay, Shona. You have my books. Thank you. Shona. I got that. I was trying to make you, I think, more Irish or different. I don't know. And this is a horrible color combo. Sometimes they pick out the worst yarns for these sorts of things, but this top one is what I'm thinking about using for that. And you really can't see what's going on there, but it's slip stitches. But what happens is you essentially treat the slip stitch almost like a cable where you slip it but then you slip it over like 2 rows, but then when you so it's like a couple rows of color A and then a couple rows of color B, slipping a stitch. So you're pulling A over B. And then when you go back to A, you actually hold the slip stitch, knit 2 or 3, or yeah, hold the slip stitch, knit 2, put the slip stitch back on, and then knit it, right? So that you're crossing it over and doing some interesting decorative stuff with it. It's not quite a cable. I guess it's technically so it's a slip, so it'd be a 1/2 cable. So it's using a slip stitch in combination with a cable that just moves that color around. So that's what I'm thinking about for that. So that's how I get that kind of idea. But then there are times where I'm looking through stitch dictionaries and a stitch particularly grabs my attention. And then what I'll do is put it on and swatch it, and then I frequently end up changing it subtly to make it do what I want. Then there's so many different ways that I get design ideas. Sometimes I come up with a name, and then I just have to figure out how I can do that. Sometimes I'm trying to achieve something. This hurricane season is my most recent pattern. And I had a goal in mind. I wanted to create a shawl that really, really worked well with variegated yarns. So I'm going to look for a stitch that I know is going to work with the variegated yarns. What I personally do not do is sketch things and then try to figure out how to make it work. That's just not how my brain works. Now, a lot of designers, I would say most designers I know, they have sketchbooks full of ideas and they just sketch things that they like or the ideas and everything like that. And then they figure out what yarns are going to work with it best and maybe figure out some stitch patterns. But they're starting from a point of, I want to create this specific thing. I come from a point of, I want to create this specific fabric. And then what can I do with that fabric once I've created it? So it, there's so many different there's so many different ways that I um, find inspiration, but it's mainly yarn based, stitch based, or technique based. I'll come up with an idea of what would happen if I did this thing, if I did something that was not particularly what people normally do. And I know a lot of people like playing with that. A lot of designers like playing with construction and doing like, how can I make this shape in a way that nobody ever has made it before, and how can I manipulate the fabric. So I hope that I don't know that helped at all, Milagro. Milagro. I don't know if that helped. My design process is very non-standard. If you are wanting to submit to like magazines, not that there are many magazines anymore, but to like yarn companies or third parties, the way that works is that those third parties create what's called a mood board that is a whole bunch of images of what they're going for, and they give you like themes. And it's like, we want comfy, cozy cables and bulky yarn, and they'll give you some of the parameters, and then you can work within those parameters. I am absolutely atrocious with those because half the time you go to the mood board, and the mood board is not, oh, look at this garment, look at this cow, look at this. It's, here's a snowy meadow and a cabin and a fireplace and a pine cone. And I'm like, how am I supposed to knit? What should I make pine cone? Um, so it's some of them are more amorphous. My brain is very, very literal. But those mood boards just drive me up a wall. You're more visual, so it's hard for you. I find swatching, if you're wanting to design, you need to work on falling in love with swatching. Um, because that might help you a little bit visually. just okay, swatching helps, especially if you're wanting to really get into design. Swatching helps with two things that I mean, a billion things, but two specific things. One is getting a better understanding of stitches and how stitches go together and how you can manipulate the fabric and manipulate stitches to do things. And the other major thing it does is, and it's, you got to make this swatch and block this swatch and have the swatch and put it in your purse and carry it around with you for a while. Um, Learning and understanding how different yarns behave, learning how different yarn structures, learning how different yarn fiber contents, learning how different weights, getting more familiar with yarn so that, and for me, that is where I frequently that's where inspirations come from, because it's like this specific idiosyncrasy of this specific combination of fiber content and yarn structure makes the yarn do this interesting thing, and how can I take advantage of this interesting thing to make a unique design? So swatching is really something that you have to. I don't know that you can be a knitwear designer without swatching. I think it's just one of those required sort of things. Um, it's interesting because I had so the Atlanta Knitting Guild had this, and I think they still do it, but when I lived there, they had this thing called Superstar Knitting. They would bring in once a year a superstar knitter, and they would give a talk, and then they would teach classes over the weekend. Okay, okay, I'm gonna. What are you doing? Oh, okay, sorry, my son just walked in. You sucked when you made a scarf and you wanted it flowy and it was stiff as a board. That is where swatching is going to help you. Um, okay. We got an answer on the quokkas. You're close to quokkas. You're substantially close to quokkas, closer to quokkas than me. They're the cutest things. They're just like, I'm like that. And when I went to the Brisbane, the Australia Zoo, the quokkas were in the same kind of area where the wombats were, if I remember correctly. And we were walking up to the wombat enclosure, and there were no wombats in the enclosure. And when we got closer, we found out that the reason why there wasn't a wombat in the enclosure is because one of the zookeepers was walking it on a leash. So we got to follow this woman who was walking the wombat on a leash. And I'm like, this is never again in my lifetime will I be walking with someone who is walking a wombat on a leash. Tina Kasna Clark, it sounds like if we knit one of your patterns, we should pay special attention to any yarn recommendations. A note to self. Mostly yes. I mean, if it just says like 100% superwash wool or something like that, fairly easy with substitutions. And typically, if it's really important, I will put stuff in the Romance language that says like stuff, but like most of my beaded shawls, several of my heavily beaded shawls, the yarn very deliberately has silk content. And the reason why it has silk content in it is silk makes the wool stronger and it holds up to all the beads and it makes it stronger. So I do. And there are some things that I've designed that really don't play well with like substitutions. Trying to match the the fiber structure and the fiber content, the yarn structure as closely as you can, is usually a good idea if you want to get the exact same result that is in the pictures. Now, you can always substitute something else and see what happens, and it could be amazing. One specific, you know what? I'm going to pull it up. I need a new tab. And this will be an interesting thing. Let me go to Ravelry. I'm not making you guys look at my search, so I am okay. Here we go. We're going to go with screen share. And we're going to select a screen. Here we go. Okay, this is Scarab Shawl. Okay. I zoomed past it. So I originally designed it in this, right? Which was given to me by the Yarn magazine. And it was a heavier kind of yarn. And then this yarn got discontinued, and I received a alpaca silk blend from that is also DK from Miss Babs. Well, that was annoying. And you can see how this one, see, like if you look here carefully, if you look at how these folds are, you can tell that this is not a particularly drapey fabric. It kind of folds over. If you look at this one with the alpaca content, you can see how it drapes in a very, very lovely way. And then it got discontinued. That yarn got discontinued. And so I didn't knit this actually. And Zula had this knit as a sample because they had a new sport weight yarn. And this one doesn't have the silk content, but because it's sport and the pattern was originally designed for DK, it was still open enough that it has a nice, beautiful drape. But the number one thing I wanted to show you is once I published this, the original publication, someone knit this. And she knit it in a DK weight 100% silk. And you can see how different that looks, how the silk holds the lace in a very different way. And I think, see how open this is? And that's because I think she might have gone up a needle size too. No, she used a 7. You can just tell it's got such a gorgeous look to it, but it's a very different look. You can see how open this is. It's a very different look than you find. This, you can really see it here. And you see how that's not as open. And that's because this is a wool yarn. So this is a merino wool nylon. But it's just, this one was so beautiful. And so I asked for them to, you know, there's a little button here. I can show you actually. So if I go through and look at this, and as a designer, you can see right here, I get this little thing that says send photo request, where I can ask to feature their picture and they can either approve or not approve it. It's okay. Like this person approved hers, and hers is absolutely lovely. It's again on the heavier, and you can see the fabric's a little more dense. There are actually quite a few, and you can see that they all have slightly different looks based on what the yarn is. So that's what swatching, and like swatching the same stitch pattern in different yarns and fiber contents. A lot of times when I'm swatching for something, I'll start with one needle size and then go up and up and up to see what happens when I change the needle sizes, and just to get an idea of what it is. Karen, do you think your move will significantly impact what you might be designing next? Yes. It's not as much that it's going to impact what I'm designing next, it's going to impact when I'm designing next. I do not anticipate having the opportunity, the brain power. As I said, I'm going to be breaking down my computer. So I'm not going to have access to my computer. I'm going to be doing anything I need to do social media wise and digitally and emails and everything. I'm going to have to do all that on my phone because I've got to break this space down. It's just too much for showing the house. And it may. Moving here to Florida significantly impacted what I design because when I got here, I started designing with more like cotton and linen and silk and lighter weight. I haven't designed a whole lot of bulky weight stuff since I've been down here. I have never lived since I've been a knitter. I have never lived in an environment that experienced what you would consider to be sweater weather. I learned to knit when I lived in Atlanta and then I moved here to Sarasota. Atlanta does not have Atlanta has more seasons than here, but it doesn't get it doesn't get cold enough there to put the time and effort into knitting a sweater as far as I'm concerned. It's more hot more of the time. So this will be my first time living in a area that has a substantial winter, cold months. Um, so fall that's actually fall and winter that's actually winter and then spring that's actually spring. So I definitely think it will probably inform what I want to knit and what I like to knit. I really enjoy knitting fingerless mitts. Um, and I can definitely see that being more. And, but I've always designed just whatever the heck I want to design. I'm sure y'all have noticed that. And it's not like I'm not going to be designing shawls because shawls are my favorite things to design because they're just like blank slates. They're palettes. I don't have to worry about fitting. I don't have to worry about sizing. I can just knit. It's knitting a piece of fabric. And that's really, really what I like to do. But also there will be a lot of it, like currently, again, this since I've been in Florida for 8 years, there's really one yarn store in my area, and I worked at it for 5 years. And it was a great yarn store, but the yarn that was influencing me was that. I have looked, and there's so many amazing yarn stores in Seattle. I already visited Hazel Knits, and I love her yarn. But there are a lot of different yarn stores there. So I'm sure going to them is going to influence me. And I have every intention of trying to make connections with the Seattle Knitting Guild, and I am confident that will have influence on me because I'll meet other knitters and I'll meet it's a community. That is one thing I haven't had here very much was a really large knitting community. So all of that I'm sure will influence my design and it might change. I mean, it'll still be mine. I mean, don't expect to see me designing any stranded colorwork yoke sweaters anytime soon because that is not something that I'm going to do. I will probably still continue to design the same types of things, being accessories. I've always designed accessories. That's where my heart is. So hats, cowls, shawls, scarves, fingerless mitts. Those are the things. Maybe a poncho. I might get more into ponchos. Who knows? Those are the things that I will continue to design, but elements of them, I look forward to seeing how it changes because any environment changes you. Okay. Well, thank you, Tina. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the cooler weather is going to maybe inspire me to knit. I don't know. Maybe more ponchos. I'm not okay. I'm always willing to be proven wrong, but I do not see me all of a sudden designing sweaters. Just not really anything I'm interested in. There's so many people out there who design so many beautiful sweaters, and it's not I don't have the attention span for sweaters. Crochet knit around New Zealand. Hello, Trish. Oh, work hard. We also have an Aussie in here, so that's exciting. I mean, but Perth and New Zealand are very far away. I mean, you're in the same hemisphere as opposed to us. Um, my shawls will work well here. Excellent. That I'm excited. And I have quite a few, and I love designing shawls that are in heavier weight yarns. I like DK weight and I like worsted weight shawls because they knit up faster, and also because I do a lot of the slip stitch color work. The slip stitch color work actually has a little bit more presence in a heavier yarn, because when you're doing the slip stitch color work, each stitch, each color work block is only one stitch wide. And when the stitch is fatter, it has more impact. So that is definitely something that I might be doing. Is a lot. I don't know how much I'm going to get into bulk. I mean, I wrote a whole book about bulky yarn, so there is that. And I don't have anything against bulky yarn. Yes, cow's in a heavier yarn too, Barbara. Hello, Professor Hyatt? Hyatt? I'm going that. I'm going out on a limb on that one. Matching shawls and hats. I rarely design anything matching. It's just not. I think it's filed under the I don't like to knit anything twice kind of situation. I rarely design matching things. And the thing is when I have designed matching things, um, it's never been like one of the two pieces of the set is usually as far as sales go. Like I have a good scarf and a matching hat. And the sales on a matching hat are like a fraction, a tiny fraction of the sales on a good scarf. Now, is it that it's not a very good hat design? There's a distinct possibility. I don't know. Um, but it's just I did that and I hadn't intended to, but I designed the scarf and I brought it in, and the ladies that were sitting there knitting were like, "Oh, this is amazing." And one of them said, "I need a matching hat for this." I'm like, "Okay." So I went and made a matching hat, which is why the name of that pattern is literally a matching hat. So it's a good scarf and a matching hat. Because that made me laugh, and that's 90% of how I name things. But the hat has not been a successful pattern for me. I wish they were. I really enjoy knitting and designing hats, but they don't really take off for me. Which is not that people don't knit hats, because like Woolly Wormhead has made an entire career out of hats, but apparently my hats not exactly what people want. I'm still gonna knit them though, because that's what I do. Oh, 3 pairs of identical-ish mittens? Ooh, that's 6 times. No, I could not do that. There would have to be drinking involved there. It's lunchtime, but you're pretending that's work. Hey, whatever makes you happy. I could not knit 6 of the exact same mitten. That would no. Mm-mm. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Elizabeth had mentioned on the Facebook post that she didn't think I had answered the question about whether or not I was done with my Alice in Wonderland series. And I can definitely say probably not. The Alice in Wonderland, the only thing that kind of goes together about those patterns is the naming system. And it's I just really enjoy Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, and there's so many interesting turns of phrase in those novels that novels, they're like this big books, that if when I design something and if it works or if it makes me think of something, then yes, I am sure that I will continue to add and continue to draw naming inspiration from Alice in Wonderland. And this goes back to um the question about where I get like design inspiration. And the thing is, most of the pieces I do have that are what I consider my Alice in Wonderland series. Um, it's not that I was like, I want to make an Alice in Wonderland pattern and then I designed the thing. It was I designed the thing. And while I was knitting it, I was thinking, what should I name this? Or even after it was completely done. I sometimes it's completely done and I have to sit back and I have to look at it and it has to tell me what its name is. And that was a grin without a cat. Because when I did a grin without a cat, I was laying it down and here, let me see if I can find a big picture of that. You know what? I'm going to open up doing stuff on my computer. Let me find it. The problem is I have random naming stuff that I do. Here we go. There it is. Okay. Share the screen. Screen 2. Allow. Okay. So actually, so you'll see here. So I have to go in here. This is where, so I use Lightroom to publish, to edit all of my photographs because I barely edit. I cannot do like any kind of photoshopping stuff. I don't really use Photoshop. I use Photoshop for other things, but I do not use Photoshop for like my actual pictures. I simply use Lightroom to adjust like the contrast and make sure the color is correct and possibly sharpen it and things like that. But I don't manipulate or erase or change things because A, I don't know how to do it. But mostly A, I don't know how to do it. And then, so that's why this is the Lightroom publish folder. And so these are all the photos. These are folder after folder. And the thing is like, I had to find a grin without a cat. And you can see right here, even when I was at the point where I was photographing it, the pattern was done to the point where I was photographing it. And the name I have is Machida Swoop because it was made out of Machida and it's swoop shaped. And so I still hadn't gotten a name for it yet. But, and this is not a great picture and why it popped up over here. Here we go. When I was looking at it and trying to get it to tell me what its name was, I looked at that. We're All Mad Here is amazing, Stitch Itch. And that the where, I mean, I had very deliberately created that swoop of lace, but to me, it looked like an off-kilter kind of smile. And it made me think of the Cheshire Cat and how the Cheshire Cat appears as a smile and then fades in and then starts fading out. And the last thing to disappear is the smile. And Alice says, I've seen a cat without a grin, but never a grin without a cat. And so I just feel like it's got that kind of smile coming out of nowhere, kind of borderline sinister. It's just like that kind of face. So that's why I did a grin without a cat. So I didn't design the shawl knowing that that was going to be the pattern's name. A lot of my pieces, I have to finish the piece and look at it and kind of like commune with it and like wrap it around my head. I have to figure out what its name is. is what I end up doing. So that is, I loved this shot. The golden hour. I was out there at golden hour, and the way that the sun, I don't know if I even use this. Not all the pictures I take very, very rarely make it into the where people can see them. I might have used this one, but see, this part was a soft focus because this golden sun coming through and showing how the drape on this piece, just loved it. I loved that. I like that shot. I like art shots. A lot of times I take arty shots for absolutely no reason. Like here, there's a bunch of pictures here. Like this is an art shot. I mean, that shot doesn't really tell you anything about the pattern. I mean, it lets you see a little bit of the back, but it's just not. But it was a very windy day, and I just like taking pictures of, like, I like taking art pictures, arty farty pictures. Like this is the primary photo I use for this particular pattern, and you can see the wind. But this one, and like this one, the reason why I took it is to get a better idea of the shape. Isn't my mom beautiful though? This is my mom. She had a very funky hairstyle that time. She does that. I come by it honestly. I'm trying to think if there's anything else interesting I could show you. I wonder where our guy Renetta is. The problem is, see, and this is the thing. The problem is that a lot of these do not have, like, silken shawl. What is the silken shawl? That's our guy Renetta. There we go. That's another one that I didn't know what I was going to name it. I didn't know what I was going to name it. So it got saved. And here, the reason why I was looking for this is, look at my mom. Isn't that great? And you can see right here. You can see down here. You can see part of it. That is actually a mermaid tattoo. And I actually have a matching one. My mother and I got those matching tattoos for her 70th birthday. And I told her that I would do that, and she came up with the whole plan. And I said, "What are we gonna get?" And she said, "We're gonna get a mermaid on our ankle." Okay, so if your 70-year-old mother told you that for her first tattoo, she wanted to get a mermaid on her ankle, what would you have visualized? Like, what would you have visualized? Because personally, I was like, oh, we're going to get, look at the size. It's like half my calf. I don't mind, even remotely, but because it's probably the smallest of my tattoos, but it's just not what I was expecting her to do. Well, thank you, Alaska Fiber Artist. I was excited to get, here's the thing. It was her 70th birthday, and I can't remember what my sister got her, but it was something amazing. Oh, hang on. I can't remember what my sister got her, but it was something amazing. And then my brother flew her to Switzerland to visit him and his family. And that was his 70th birthday gift to her. And I was like, what can I do that is in any way, shape, or form going to, I wasn't trying to top, but I was trying to at least meet the same level as my siblings as far as giving her a memorable and fun gift. So I was like, we'll get matching tattoos. And then she gave me that giant mermaid. And also, I will say, I was expecting something more this size. They charge by the hour, and the difference in cost between something this size and something this size, it was a little pricey, but I don't mind. I'm happy to have it, and it will give me joy eternally. You don't have to change Alaska Fiber artist. It's no big deal. Yes, good tattoo artists are very. I don't understand people who like bargain shop for tattoos. I'm like, this is permanent. This is staying on my body. I'm willing to shell out a few bucks for a piece of permanent art on my body. A personal gift like a tattoo is always awesome. You know what? Only if the person actually wants a tattoo. And that's what I said when I approached her about it. I'm like, you have been talking about tattoos forever. And I already had one at this point. I'm like, you've been talking about tattoos for absolutely forever. If this is something you're interested in, I would be happy to make this gift to you for your 70th birthday. And it really surprised her. And she was like, oh my gosh. And then literally, this is when I still lived in Atlanta and she was here in Sarasota. And literally the next week when I talked to her on the phone, she was like, okay, so this guy came to fix my air conditioner and he had this really pretty tattoo on his arm. And I was like, oh, that's a really cool tattoo. And he was like, oh, do you want to see my other ones? And he like took off his shirt and he showed me some other tattoos and he gave me this name of this guy that was downtown. And I called him and I had an appointment to talk. I'm like, I guess we're getting tattoos. She was so excited about it. She was really stoked. So, I mean, they were 4 hours a piece. So we were there for a while, had some pizza in between hers and mine. But it was cool. Okay, does anyone have any more knitting questions? Can we talk about knitting? Can we talk about yarn? Anybody got any needle questions? I really feel like we might have reached the maximum needle question kind of situation. I think we've gotten that down. But always up for, I'd love if any of you know new interesting things about needles. Always good. I mean, speaking of tattoos, needles, whatever. I need to take a breath. I've been talking non-stop. Barbara, I have not used this. That's a big fat lie. I have used square needles once, but it was very early in the days of square needles, and they were the wooden ones, and I did not like them because they dug into my fingers. There was a sharp, like this, the edges of the square were sharp, and I have very soft hands. So that didn't work for me. But the newer square needles are much, much better. Specifically the Addy Rocket squares. I know people like my old boss who owned a good yarn, who owned the yarn store. She has been knitting forever and ever and ever. She has every needle known to man. And when those Addy Rockets came out, she converted all of her needles over to the square ones and will knit with nothing else. They are ergonomic. They are light. They're hollow, so they're very light. So they cause less stress on your hands, and the way you hold them is different. So the way that the square needles work is that our hands, human hands, are not designed to hold in a pinch position without moving. That is what causes carpal tunnel. That's not how our hands and wrists are designed. And when you're knitting and you're on the cylinder, your hands stay in a fixed position because it's a cylinder. With specifically the Addy Rocket squares, they are square, but they also have like these little smooth, like speed bump kind of situation going on. And every time you subtly reposition your hand when you're in the process of knitting, the way you re-grasp it is slightly different than I'm looking at my fingers on the screen. Every time you reposition, just the slight repositioning, every time you re-grasp, it's in a slightly different position. And it's enough of a slightly different position that it alleviates a lot of that pinch tension that you get from a cylindrical needle. So, especially for people with arthritis, people with repetitive strain injuries, people who are trying to not get repetitive strain injuries, those square needles are very beneficial. And people are concerned about what it does to gauge. And the thing is, you're supposed to be doing a gauge swatch anyway. So if you have to go up or down a needle size, ain't no thing. It's you might have had to have done that in the cylindrical needle. So but yes, so those the Addy ones, I do know. I've heard nothing but positive things about the Addy ones. I might have knit with them a couple of times. Um, I have a full suite of needles, and when push comes to shove, I'm cheap. Even if they were that much, I'm not gonna buy more. It's just it's I got ones that work just fine, thanks. Um, oh, you got wrist stabilizers? Mhm. I spent several years in, um, sleeping in the one that was uh, metal going up like this, and then the metal piece that went like this. So it keeps this. But then I had to change to one that had rigid things, but then also a thing that wrapped around my thumb because I was having a lot of problems with my thumb. So it was like stabilizing my wrist and my thumb at the same time. Um, so plus side, I sleep on my left side. So my arm was like this because it was like a club, and it's just the nature of things because our hands aren't really designed to do that. That's not what all our tendons and little fine motor skills aren't supposed to be holding something like that for like extended periods of time. Which that was a face of someone contemplating saying something that might be controversial. And it's a thought that has never occurred to me before. And if I talk it through, I might decide I don't like the thought. But it is a thought that I just had because really and truly, holding stuff like that is not what our hands are designed to do. And so, all of the people who get a little bit self righteous about the fact that the younger generations don't write cursive and don't write a lot, that we're all communicating by email and something, ergonomically, it actually might be better for us than the era of everybody holding a little cylindrical pin or needle and doing this all day long. So, I don't know. It might actually be better. Get a rotator cuff surgery. I'm afraid I am not qualified to give you any suggestions, Heidi. I'm sorry. The only thing that I know of that is in any way is the square needles that claims to have any sort of benefit, but I don't know if that goes all the way up the arm. I just know it's more about wrist and hand tendons. I didn't have surgery, but I had a rotator cuff injury, and that is no fun. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. That's the bummer. Um, I got a rotator cuff injury when I was doing the photography for another designer's book, and I decided to get a shot that I needed involved me climbing and hanging out of a tree, and my camera had on the long lens, so the camera plus the lens probably weighed about 8 to 10 pounds, and my shoulder did not like it. Oh, yeah, that was not good, but it wasn't a, like, repetitive strain injury, it was doing a single stupid thing injury. Um, many, many, many moons ago. Many moons ago. That was actually the first book that had my name on the front, because the author of it was kind enough to put my name on it as well, because I was the photographer. It was very cool. Let me tell you how challenging it was to come up with interesting ways to shoot 16 different pairs of socks that were going to all be in the same book, because it's socks and they go on your feet. And how how do you make that interesting? So that was a little rough, but it was actually challenging and entertaining because it gave me that challenge to come up with the idea of how we were going to do that. So that was fun. Okay. Any more questions? Yes, the ergonomic book. I have that. This one. Let me blow the dust off. This one. I got this one. I got it at work. And I should probably read it. But I don't have time. I wonder how it's arranged. I wonder if it's got like rotator cuff in the back. Nope. Radiation risks. Okay, it doesn't have anything on rotator cuff, but I need to know what radiation risks is. What in the world is radiation risk? Because I don't think it's what my brain went to. I really have to know what the radiation risk is. And these are not my glasses. As I thought, it is not. So it's a chart on bad vibes in knitting symptoms and solutions. And so the way it's set up is concerns, risk factors, symptoms. Inadequate lighting leads to eye strain and headache. And then she has a solution. Glare symptoms, usually caused by reading patterns or charts lying flat on a table. Noise induces stress, which leads to tension. Uncomfortable temperatures, being too hot or too cold, and how to fix that. And then the last one, the radiation one, is ouch, sunburns hurt. Wear sunscreen, cover up, knit with a fancy hat with a brim. So that is not at all. I was like, is there some equivalent of like the Fiesta wear, but it's knitting? I need to know. And then 144. No, that was 144. Okay, so there's a whole thing. Okay, that was funny for me. I hope it was funny for y'all. Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh, excellent. We're talking about. So, Tina has asked, Heidi, do you knit with small or large movement? For example, I knit with very small motion, mostly with my fingers. That might help. Beat your mittens. I use pillows under your elbows. That's interesting. Heidi, from monitors. That was a possibility, but no, she's talking about don't knit outside and get a sunburn. Adjustable metal stand to hold your patterns. One pillow, one oversized item. So my preferred knitting, like if I could have a knitting chair that for me would be a perfect knitting chair, it would be one where the seat is at the right height, where my feet are just on the ground. I don't want my knees up, but I don't want them dangling either. And then that has a fairly straight back, so I'm sitting up straight and not down like this. But I also want low arms, because my favorite way to knit is actually in a chair with low arms, so that I can take my elbows and I put them at waist height, and they're wedged, like trapped between the arms and my body, which forces me to keep my hands low, like in my lap. Because when my elbows have free rein, as I'm knitting, I do this and this and this and this, and then I'm knitting like this. And that's not good for any part of the body. And I got to force myself back down, and then it creeps back up, and I got to force but if I held my elbows locked in, they don't rise, and I can sit up, and if I have a support on my back and everything. So what I need is like a old-fashioned, like, sitting ch like an armchair, because modern armchairs are these giant overstuffed squishy pillow things, and when I sit in them, the top of the arms are, like, on my shoulder height because 'cause I'm a munchkin, and it's just I need one of those, like old-fashioned side chair kind of sitting room thing. I don't know where to get them. Used to knit like I was you're a bird taking this the elbows just they go up, and it's not good. Very small. I'm very small. Um, I'm small in one direction. I am larger in the other direction. But that is I'm sorry about the rotator cuff injury. I don't have keeping I think though, because again, my shoulder does twinge still because I didn't have surgery, and keeping my elbow down and pressed to my side has helped with that as opposed to it supporting a whole bunch. Elbow and pillow, probably. Okay, you're gonna try that in a chair. I could never knit in a beanbag. I really I need to be sitting upright. Like, this is a desk chair, and if it was wider and I could get my elbows inside the arms are a little bit too low, that would help me. It's I forget about my elbows, and I can't concentrate, and they float up. But if they're wedged, I I cannot think of them, and they stay where they're supposed to be. You sat in hundreds at IKEA. There is an IKEA close to me. So, well, there will be in Seattle, so that's what okay. Hello, Jenny? Jenny? New knitter, and you're following my shawl. Is that the many leaf stitch pattern, may I ask? The two repeat shawl, it's lace. Um, it really isn't like it's not a named well, I hope you're enjoying knitting it. It is not a named um a named stitch pattern particularly. It's just an arrangement as with any lace, it's just an arrangement of increases and decreases. So I didn't even really reference a knitting stitch dictionary or anything like that. It's just a combination of the I'd have to go back and look at it, but it's just I think it's a three stitch pattern. I think it's a three stitch repeat. Um, let me look. I don't know if I can find this quickly. Um, I'm not gonna be able to find it quickly. It doesn't have a name. It's just it's a because it's the way it is, the way it increases, takes the lace pattern, which is, I believe, yarn over double decrease, yarn over knit one or something like that. So maybe it's a four stitch repeat. And then because of how the increases work on the side, when the next time you do it, it's actually shifted the pattern over so it just repeats normally across, but it's alternating. So instead of the motif stacking, they nest, they alternate, and that's what makes you be able to do it in 2 rows is just how it does. But I it's not it's not a it could be a named pattern, but I don't know what it is. It was just me taking the structure into account and making it so it would do it in 2 rows. Um, yes, it is the crescent shaped shawl. Hello, Kathy. Wait a minute, Barbara from Indiana. When did Barbara from Indiana come in? Hello? Um, well, thank you very much, Alaska Fiber Artist. It's helped with learning color work and manipulating stitches and fabric. You know what? That's what I want. I want to help people understand their work better so that they can, solve their own problems, but also come up with creative and interesting ideas. I adore crescent shaped shawls as well. They are quite possibly my favorite shape to wear. Now, right now, my favorite shape to design is this side to side because of a very specific reason. Because it starts little and goes big, it is very adaptable to different yarn types and different yarn weights, and it's very adaptable to different amounts of yardages. So a lot of different people it doesn't have like a restriction as far as how big you can go with it. It's easy to expand. Crescent shawls um, only get so big, and then they're getting so much longer without getting a whole lot more depth, and they are eating the yarn, so they just take a little bit more planning and a little bit more like effort on the design part, and they aren't as easy to modify for the end user. So that's the only, but I love crescent shawls. I love the way they wear. They are I've designed many crescent shawls. They're probably my favorite shape, and they have just I like the way that they have the little swoopies and everything. I love crescent shaped shawls. The other shape I really like that I feel like I should design more. I've only done 2, I think, is the 3/4 shawl, which essentially what it is a square with 1 triangle taken out. Or you could think of it as a top-down triangle shawl with a bonus triangle added on. That is the shape you're looking at. And it is a very wearable shape. It gives more coverage than a crescent shaped shawl does, but it wears a lot easier. Um, Hang on. Here we go. This is Anella mollis, and you can see it wants to pop up over here. It's got the shape on it. So you're starting here, just like a top-down triangle. And like, with a top-down triangle, it's going to be a increase and then a little bit, and then a spine where you go increase, knit, increase, and then a little bit. And then there would just be 1 increase, and then you've got a top-down triangle. The way that the 3/4 works is you've got an increase, knit, panel, increase, knit, increase, panel, increase, knit, increase, panel, and then your edge increase. So with the top down triangle, you are increasing 4 stitches every right side row. And with this style of 3/4 of a square, you're doing 2, 4, 5, 6 stitches. Now, a crescent shaped shawl also increases 6 stitches every 2 rows. So the 3/4 triangle increases 6 stitches every right side row. The crescent shape increases 6 stitches every 2 rows, typically increasing 4 stitches on the right side and 2 stitches on the wrong side. And that is important, but also the placement is important. With a crescent, yes, we're increasing 6 stitches every other row, but all of those stitches are they're on the edge. You're going to have 2 increases on each edge, and then you've got either you can do all 6 increases on the edge. So it's 2 on the right side, 2 on the right side, and then 1 on each edge, or you can place where it's you're increasing 2, and then you have this center that has a triangle that grows in it, but it makes it crescent as opposed to the squared off where you've got the straight spines. Yes, Diana, the 3/4 does sit on the shoulders really, really well because it just, let me see if it, you can see this one is huge though. This is a massive, there, that's how it sits. Because you've got that extra panel, it wraps around really, really beautifully. And this particular pattern has, I really like the texture in the body. Now, this particular one, I just grabbed it because it shows you this body part has the 3/4 shaping, but this is a hybrid shawl shape because once you finish this texture part, I wanted to do this lace part, but I did not want to continue. You can see right here, I did not want this spine to continue down into the lace. I wanted the lace to be uninterrupted. So I actually, at this point, stop the 3/4 shaping, and there is literally an entire row of knit front back. You knit front back the every single stitch across the entire row, and it doubles the number of stitches you have on the needle, which is like a pie shawl shaping. And then you can just knit this lace with no increases at all until your heart's desire. You can just keep on going and going because you don't have to increase on the edges anymore because it's created it's essentially almost a ruffle, but I blocked it out flat, but you can see that it does have a slight ruffled effect. So that's how this one, and this is a worsted weight shawl. That's, I told you I like heavier shawls. I really like this shawl. Anella Mollis is actually, hang on here. What happened? Oh, here we go. So that's it. So that's Anella mollis. Anella mollis is actually the Latin name for a specific species of fan coral. And this is one of the few times I have actually designed anything that the name actually references the color, but in a way that nobody knows that that's what I'm doing. So it's not, I don't think, going to, but I don't know if you can see, let me, that, so in the shawl, like the way you wear it, it's upside down, but I don't know, you can see that what I was trying to do is the name is supposed to evoke, because this was designed in the year that the Pantone color was living coral, and this is Malabrigo's yarn, and they made a living coral color. So this was a whole thing. So I named it after a coral. The color is coral. I designed it to look like the coral as as referencey as I can. I very rarely do anything like literal. But yeah, so that is Anella mollis. But the 3/4 shape wears very, very well. I like it possibly almost as much as the crescent. I really like that you can do this with it. The wrap, it's almost like having a cape. It's just voluminous. So I like it. I need to design. I planned on designing more in that shape and I just haven't. I got so many things on my list of things to do. But unfortunately, my list of things to do is now pack, 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 pack. Unfortunately. You like Anella mollis, Karen? So I'm glad that is, I guess I said it's Malabrigo and it's in Malabrigo Rios is what I think it's 5 skeins. It's a big, like big shawl. I like it. Hey, Grandma Boo. The name of that shawl is a Nella Mollis. It's just one of my shawls. Oh, and somebody had asked. Oh, it went by. I don't know if the person's even still here. I don't know if the person's even still here. Back to the screen share. So someone asked where they could get my patterns. I believe it was Jenny. So this is my website. It is tumpedduck.com, Tumped. Tumped means tumped over. That's why my little duck logo is falling on his face. And so this is my website, and you can buy my patterns off my website directly, or if you would like, you can also buy my patterns on Ravelry. So they're on both places. You can see it's the exact same thing in both places. The same yarn, same. If you just go here, see, and here you can get to Ravelry. But if you click on through PayHip, you can see these are all my patterns. So that's where you can get them. Also, a lot of my patterns are available on actually, here we go, shop. If you go here, and luckily my name starts with a B. There you go. So a lot of my patterns are available on the Knit Companion. You can see here, there's my mom again. And here's an older picture of my mom. I think I like her hair shorter. See, you can see the tattoo again. Yeah, I definitely like it shorter. I'm going to tell her that. I hope she doesn't get mad at me. It's really short right now. Okay. So that's where you can get my patterns. Okay. So Grandma Boo. I am not particularly known for beginner patterns. I started off with fairly high level stuff, just because that's what I was interested in. I have started, and over the years, I have created what ones that are relaxing, what I consider relaxing patterns that are relatively straightforward, and then patterns that are more taxing, that take time, brain power and stuff like that, because it depends on what kind of mood I'm in. But beginner has a very specific definition. And so if a beginner asks me if I have a pattern, um, because beginner means you can knit, you can purl, there's no shaping, there's no lace, there's no cables. Beginner is essentially knit purl. That's all you got going on. And I like lace, and I like color work, and I like all those sorts of things. Now, the simplest pattern I have is a scarf called a good scarf, and it has knit, purl, and slipped stitches. Those are the only 3 stitches that are used. It is literally one line of instructions. But there are nuances to it. How you slip the stitch matters. If you're a beginner, I'm going to say that if you see an instruction in a pattern that says to slip a stitch, then you need to know that they are specifically meaning that the stitch needs to be slipped purlwise, which means you're going to insert the needle. You're going to insert your right hand needle into the next needle on your left-hand needle, next stitch on your left-hand needle from right to left, like you're going to purl, and you just insert it and transfer it without knitting it at all. It's just moving it from one side to another. You have slipped a stitch. The thing that I have seen beginners do with this pattern that causes problems is they slip the stitch by inserting the needle knitwise. And if you insert the needle knitwise and slip it over, you're actually twisting that stitch. And you're going to end up with a twisted stitch, which is not what the pattern calls for, and it's going to look different. So as long that is really the only um sticking point that I've seen people have with that pattern is that they slip the stitch incorrectly. Um, it has a slip stitch edge on it that some beginners have struggled with. You can just eliminate the slip stitch edge. The last stitch, instead of slipping it, you can just knit it and then you get a garter edge, which is lovely and fine. If you don't like this, because some people have problems controlling their tension on that slip stitch edge, especially beginners. So you can eliminate that. But being comfortable modifying a pattern, even if it's simply that, is something that you wouldn't necessarily ask a knitter to do, a beginning knitter to do. So it's just so, but that is a good scarf is the simplest pattern I have created. But yeah, beginning is not. I have some other simple patterns that I would consider to be easy patterns. And actually, there is a good whoopee, which is a baby blanket size version of a good scarf, and it uses only the 3 stitches. Impulse Buy is not challenging, but it does have lace in it, and it's worked on a bias, so it does have shaping to it. It's just hard to gauge what skill level people are at. Whether they're adventurous, whether they're up for a challenge. Everybody has a different idea of what beginner is. Okay, see, there you go. You just finished an asymmetrical shawl. Did it curve? Because again, if you've done an asymmetrical shawl, that means that you've done some shaping, which means you're not a beginner anymore. Because the beginner is super easy. Thank you very much, Kathy. A good scarf is I'm proud of that pattern. Is I don't know how I could conceivably make it any easier than it is. That was my goal with that one. I'm like, I want this to be the easiest pattern I've ever written. This is what I want. No curving, so it was just an asymmetrical, so it's just a triangle. But you use that lace bind off, so that is a knit two together through the back loopy kind of thing. That it sounds like you might. I have a video that you might want to. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It's a fairly popular video. Here it is. So that video is what is your knitting skill level? And I talk about a lot of stuff in it, talking about evaluating for yourself and maybe thinking about the reason I made that video. How many of y'all have actually watched that video where I talk about our advanced beginning and stuff like that? I bet a bunch of you have. I made that video for a very specific reason, because what I have found in working with and teaching many, many different knitters is that the vast majority of knitters consistently underestimate their own abilities. Susan Day, when I'm looking at a new project. They consistently underestimate their own abilities. And that is why on Ravelry, there's actually a thing where it's like project difficulty, and you almost never see one that has more than 1 or 2 stars. And it's because the vast majority of female knitters, um, they really have the attitude is, well, I finished it, so it couldn't have been that hard because I'm not very good, and they rate it low. Because I have specifically designed and exceptionally, like I did it on purpose. I'm like, how? How can I make this this as ridiculous as possible? That was my goal. And the average difficulty that people say is that it's a 5. And it is colorwork Estonian lace. Okay. I was trying to make it impressive. And so the fact that now I think that also is colored by the fact that people look at it and they don't even attempt it because they look at it and it's intimidating. So that is why that difficulty rating on Ravelry is pretty much useless because it's made up of people who looked at a pattern and said, "Hey, I can do that," and then did it. And so they're like, "That wasn't very hard," even though it had 7 into 3 noops because they were good on that. No, that's hard. That is a hard thing to do. Just because you can do it easily doesn't make it not a difficult thing to do. So I think that women and knitters consistently underestimate their abilities on that. So I made that video to try to get people to really look at um, where they are and give themselves a little more credit than they might otherwise. Okay, Susan Day, when you're looking at a new project that has a mix of stockinette and lace, is there a way to determine if there's enough lace to keep the stockinette from rolling? It depends a lot on the location of the lace. Um, and I would hope that the designer has already taken that into consideration. That is part of designing is making sure that it doesn't do wonky stuff. Now, do you always accomplish that? Not necessarily. But so it's so it's a mixture of the amount of lace, but also the location of the lace and the type of item that you're talking about. So if you could give a little bit, do you have anything more specific in mind? Is it just like a shawl that has like lace along the bottom or a cardigan that has lace along the bottom? Because if that's the case, it doesn't take a lot of lace to prevent rolling. Um, it doesn't. Uh, because lace really breaks. I was gonna say the way I think about it, and I don't know if it's gonna make any sense to y'all. What I consider to be the surface tension. Okay, so the reason why stockinette rolls is because the knit stitch is taller than it is wide, and the purl stitch is wider than it is tall. So when you are knitting stockinette, you are essentially creating, if you imagine it being 2 pieces of paper, and you've created you've created these 2 pieces of paper, one that is slightly taller and slightly narrower, and one that's slightly wider and slightly shorter, but they're attached at the edge and squished together, which is why it rolls. Because the knit side is longer, it curls like this. And because the purl side is wider, it curls, hang on, like this. it curls up around the edges, and the knit side curls down around the purl side because it's two different size pieces of paper that have been glued together. Um, and what I think of the techniques that you use to make sure that it doesn't curl, I think of it as breaking the surface tension. Thinking of it as these two pieces and there's this tension to it. But what you do is if you create along the edges something, a fabric that has an equal proportion of knits and purls, then instead of it being two differently shaped pieces, that part that has the knits and purls, that's 50-50, that part is the same size and the two pieces are the same size. And it just has to be enough of it to break that tension between the stockinette and that. The lace also can do it because lace has all of those holes in it. Again, it breaks that tension and allows that extra tension to feed into the lace areas as opposed to having the energy to curl up, if that makes sense. Oh, thinking of patterns that have lace throughout while mixing with the stockinette, it should be fine. Unless I mean, like this. Well, no, this also has some other stuff. If it is a pure stockinette lace, um, it's, I mean, if it is lace, you should be fine. If it is eyelets, then you can run into difficulties. And well, differentiation there is lace is like a repeated pattern of increases and decreases where the increases are yarn overs that create repeated motifs, and it's an all over pattern or just whatever. Eyelets are like standalone units where it's just like yarn over knit two together that are just scattered in a stockinette fabric. That is not lace. Those are eyelets. They're just holes. And those are not typically enough to break that tension. But an overall lace typically is fine as long as that lace is in there to break that tension. But again, you can always add in a little bit of seed stitch. You can always add in a little bit of garter. There are things that it's breaking up that overwhelmingness of stockinette. So, and again, when if you're looking at the new project, if you're looking at an actual designed thing that a designer has put out, if you look at the pattern, I mean, if you look at the pictures and it's laying flat, it should be fine. But you know what? I don't think I've ever talked about the difference between lace and eyelets. There are two very distinctly different functional things. They do different things in your yarn, in your knitting, because there's just not enough going on with an eyelet to break up that stockinette as far as the tension kind of situation I was talking about. There's a couple others. I wanted to experiment. I've never tried it. If you're dealing with like a straight vertical thing, I've also seen people that what they do is they add in a stitch or two and on both edges. And then at the very end, they drop 2 stitches and let it run all the way down. And then that feeds extra yarn into those kind of slightly elongated selvage stitches, and that'll break the tension. I've never tried it before. It's one of those things it's one of those things that I contemplate might be an interesting. I've contemplated making a video that was like 5 no roll selvages that aren't garter or something like that, because garter is just the default, and it's the default because it's 50-50 knits purls. It breaks that tension. But yeah, I've considered doing the things that prevent rolling that aren't garter, because garter works great and garter is easy and it looks nice. But there's other things you can do. Anything that's pretty much 50-50 knits pearls. You could do stockinette, you could do moss stitch. You could, I don't know. I'm sure there's other things. Ooh, what part did you not understand? I'm just glad that you learned something because a lot of times I'm just talking and talking and talking and hoping that it's useful to somebody because I just like talking about knitting. It's something I like to do and it's fun. Okay, so we have probably been here long enough. I really greatly appreciate everyone who has joined us for this chit chat. We did talk about knitting for a while and other stuff. I really do. I appreciate y'all so much. And I have the ability to do it from my phone. We'll figure out how to do it, and I will be here for the next one. We will definitely be continuing the lives. Um, I don't know if I get a wild hair, we might even do an extra live. I just don't have the capacity right now to do produced videos. Um, Yay! I like joining people on their knitting journey, and everybody learns new stuff. I learn new stuff every day. Um, I what was I saying? Um, I just don't have the mental capacity right now to do produced videos. They wouldn't be good videos. And I was trying to push myself to make them, and I realized I would rather not make them and save it for a time where I have the capacity to make them well because I just don't have the brain power right now. But I do have the brain power. Well, I don't know. You guys have to tell me if I have the brain power to come on here and talk to y'all because I'm just kind of babbling. Hey, Tina, thank you. And I don't know if our Australian and our New Zealander are still in here, but I really appreciate, and we had a Canadian. I really appreciate y'all joining me. I'm very, I don't know how to express how much these chats mean to me, because it keeps me kind of grounded because things are chaotic right now. So watch the Facebook page, and I will put up the announcement that we will, for the next live, and we can come and chit chat. If you ever have any questions in between, you can always put a question on as a comment on a video, or come over to the Facebook page group and ask questions there. And I love looking at pictures of stuff if you're working on anything. So thank you so much for joining me. Y'all have a lovely evening and have a great upcoming weekend. Next month is April. I hope you have, for those of you in the United States, I hope you are working on your taxes because that's happening. Okay. Thank y'all and good night. Let me push the button. And we're going to push this button here. It says your stream will stop immediately and you will no longer be live. Okay, bye-bye.